All right, everyone, welcome to our latest episode of Voices United. This is our newly branded weekly broadcast live from United Way of Citrus County. And today we are indeed live. You know, we get some really important people in here, and sometimes I can't quite get them live, but Gerry Mulligan is our guest today, and he'll be with us live in just a minute. And before we bring Gerry in, this has been a really, really busy week, and so will next week at United Way because it's time for our Publix annual giving campaign. And let me just say now, I just want to take an opportunity to say how much we appreciate Publix. And you think about Publix, how they are just like everyone's favorite supermarket. I mean, they're just absolutely amazing, and they're located in the Southeast United States. Um, and with that small of a footprint, like globally, when you look at it globally, right, they have a relatively small footprint. It's not like they're an international brand per se. They are the number one corporate contributor to United Way worldwide and here in Citrus County. So it's just hard to imagine United Way and all the good work we do without Publix. So shout out to Publix. Thank you all so, so much. We've been in the stores this week. They've got a great reception, and it's been wonderful to be out there. All right. So thank you, Publix, and thank you to our guest today. It is the one and only Gerry Mulligan. Gerry, how are you today?
I'm doing great, George. How about you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate you joining us today. And listen, you know, you have quite the storied history. You know, from my point of view, even with United Way, like you were on the board of United Way for a long time. You were a part of the group that put United Way together and made it happen here in Citrus County. And
Yeah,
so, thanks to you for all of that, for sure.
those
Uh,
those were fun times. There was a lot of folks don't realize that United Way didn't take off in the county the first time we tried to get it going. Wilson Burns was a retired businessman in the Sugar Mill Woods area, Rotarian, and he was real familiar with United Way before. And we tried to start it like 1981, and got a small group of people together, and just wasn't big enough. The timing wasn't right. But Wilson came back again 4 years later and organized a group of people that got things going. But he really was in Citrus County. He's the grandfather of United Way. Did great things and pulled Steve Lamb in to be our first campaign chair. And we did some really good things. It was fun to see it grow up like that.
so the 40-year anniversary then is coming up
Coming
soon.
up, coming up. That's
Coming
right.
up soon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I will bother you and Steve about telling that story again when that 40-year comes, and
Very
love
good.
love to engage you in that. I will definitely. I want people in the community to hear that story. Speaking of stories, you've got a book that was fairly recently released, Out of the Window. 43 years on the beat as the publisher of the Citrus County Chronicle. And so when you came to the Chronicle, you were 25 years old as editor?
25 years old. Yeah. I came in as the editor of the newspaper back in 1978. David Arthurs was the owner of the paper at the time, and we were just a little weekly newspaper and really just served the Inverness area. We had another newspaper on the west side of the county called the Suncoast Sentinel out of Crystal River, and I ran the Inverness paper. But it was such a fun time to be involved in the newspaper business. Things were booming all over Florida, but we had a bunch of newspapers interested in taking over Citrus County and becoming the newspaper of Citrus County. So we had to make a decision in the 1980s to turn the weekly newspaper into a daily newspaper. If we were going to compete against the St. Pete Times and Tampa Tribune and Ocala, we had to be coming out every day, and we had to grow very rapidly. So I had a lot of fun growing a weekly newspaper into a daily newspaper, and being very competitive in this community.
Yeah. So if I read the description of the book, I'm going to read it right now.
Okay.
You can, folks, if you're watching and you don't have the book yet, you can go on Amazon. Um, Gerry, you could tell us if there's preferred places to go, but you can go to Amazon for anything these days. But I want to read the description of the book. Over the next 43 years, so this is after you got here. Over the next 43 years, Gerry led the charge to turn the newspaper into a 7-day daily in one of the state's fastest growing markets. Along the way, he was bitten by snakes, screamed at by sheriffs, maligned by politicians, and ultimately had poop in his shoe from his own dog.
Hmm.
Hunter, right? Hunter?
Hunter, that's right. That's you hear him barking in the background.
Yeah. Uh, Over 4 decades, he never once missed writing his weekly column. That's impressive. I mean, if you had any slackers around there, you always had that card to pull anyway, Gerry. For more than 2,200 consecutive weeks, he told the stories of his community. Some were funny, some were sad, and a few put Mulligan in the hospital. And
Hmm.
out of the window, you can enjoy some of the best. So I thought what we would do today is I know this might be a little self-indulgent for the audience right now, but and if you're out there watching live, you can actually type in the comments section and say hi to Gerry if you like. I can bring those comments up on the screen. Um, but I certainly have a favorite story that I've heard of yours. I've heard you speak many times over the years, whether it be at Leadership Citrus or at maybe chamber functions or other things in the community. And I'm always so interested in whatever I can learn about leadership. I actually have a degree in business and professional leadership. It's just a
Hmm.
topic. I don't think that makes me the greatest leader in the world, that's for sure. But at least I'm hungry to be better anyway, every single day, and I'll get there eventually, probably about the time I retire. But you tell a leadership story about a former sheriff, B.R. Quinn, and
Yeah,
about him
yeah.
really like taking responsibility and accountability. And I'm hoping you'll share that, and then maybe another story, one of your favorites from the community as well. And then we'll finish up by having you share what I always ask everyone, and that is what you're excited about as you look forward in Citrus County. So would you tell us the story of
Sure,
B.R. Quinn?
sure. BR was the sheriff of Citrus County for 28 years. Started, I guess that would have been the early 50s through or mid 50s through 1980. And, to be honest, I didn't always have good experiences with sheriffs in previous places that I worked in small town Florida. So I was a little bit apprehensive when I first met BR, but it didn't take long to realize that this guy was incredibly honest. And we don't always see that in politicians today, but back in the day, BR would tell you the truth all the darn time. And the story goes, the story that I related in the book and in the newspaper was that it's 3 o'clock in the morning one day, and BR, my phone rings at home. I live in Floral City, and he says, Gerry, would really appreciate it right now if you could get in your car, come to the county jail. I need to meet you. And I'm like, BR, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Can't this wait till the morning? He's like, no, you got to come now. I said, okay, so I drive into Inverness, get there 20 minutes later, and BR walks me into the back of the jail, and he shows me a jail cell, and he says, I want to tell you what happened. I feel really bad about this, but an inmate escaped from the county jail today, and the guy's name was Bruce Bertram. And so BR, how did this happen? What happened? He says, well, if you want to know the truth, I left the door open of his jail cell. And I'm like, you did what? And he explained that Bruce had been convicted of murder, and he was sent off to the state prison, but his jury trial got overturned on a technicality, sent back to Inverness to be resentenced on the charges. So he was just sitting in the county jail. And this guy Bruce was the best tile man in Citrus County. He was really good at putting tile floors down. And they were building this new Burger King up on the hill in Inverness in Highlands Shopping Center. And the owners asked if Bruce could lay the tile of the Burger King. and, and BR let him do it. So to let him get an early start, he left the jail door open of his cell so Bruce could leave at 7 o'clock in the morning and go put the tile down. And he did that. And one morning he decided not to come back, and he escaped. And BR felt terrible about it. This, unfortunately for BR's sake, was about 5 months before the election. He was facing Charlie Dean for the second time in a re-election campaign, but BR wasn't going to lie about it, and he just said it was my fault. I left the door open. I set a bad example, and the public deserves to know about it. And that is flat out. That is why BR lost the election after serving for 28 years. Shouldn't have done it, but you know what he wasn't going to do? He wasn't going to hide it. He wasn't going to lie about it. He was going to tell people the truth and live with the consequences. And to me, that was just such a great indication of what a good, honest person he was. Did he make mistakes? Absolutely. Shouldn't have left the jail door cell open, but taking responsibility for it. That's a lesson that every politician today, every elected official, and all of us can learn to live by.
So, Jared, did you write the story about it for the paper?
Yeah, the paper was very small at the time. We had about 4 or 5 people in the newsroom. The whole paper staff was 20 people. Again, we were just a little teeny weekly newspaper. We grew up, and at our peak, I mean, we had 168 full-time employees at the newspaper, about 40 of those in the newsroom. So as we became a daily, it became a much bigger responsibility. And remember, when I moved to Citrus County, we had 30,000 people in the community.
That's amazing. Yeah.
What do we have today? 160, maybe 165.
Yeah.
And let me I'll go into one of my other favorite stories is when I moved, and I wrote about this in the book, when I moved to Citrus County, we had one traffic light, and the traffic light was downtown at the courthouse. And the funny thing about it was, and I probably shouldn't have written this column to begin with, but I did. We turned the traffic light off every night at 5 o'clock. And, because there just wasn't a lot of traffic on US 41 after that. But I wrote a column and suggested that the courthouse employees are getting off at 5 o'clock. Why don't we at least leave the light on till 6 o'clock and see if we can facilitate them getting out of the courthouse area? The next day, the police chief of Inverness came down and he gave me a sealed letter. And that letter invited me to come to the Inverness City Council meeting. And I was just, I'd only been there a couple of weeks. And I was so impressed that I thought the city council was going to invite me to come and welcome me to Inverness.
You thought there was going to be a red carpet down there?
I did. There was a red carpet, but it was pointed out of town. And Bob Ritz was the president of the Inverness City Council at the time. He invited me to leave Inverness and not come back. So that was my welcoming to the community.
What was it? Why did they burn so many calories over your comment on leaving a light on for 30 minutes or an hour?
Again, it's a small town. You go back to some of the folks that have been around forever in this community, and everybody knew everybody's business. And that's what made it so charming. That's what made it a wonderful place. But it also, it had its interesting moments where you couldn't get away with too much. And I didn't get away with writing that column without getting slapped around by the president of the council a little bit.
Well, in terms of everybody knowing everybody's business, I mean, some things never change, Jerry.
That is true.
We're at 165,000. Maybe that'll change when we're at 3, but I don't know. I have my doubts and suspicions. At that point, we might reach the level where we can start a local tabloid, right?
Yeah, there we
go. I want to ask you one more question about BR though. When you wrote the column, because he preemptively came down, had you come down, I wonder where you were on, like, in terms of who he called first, second, and third.
Yes.
But how did that affect, if it did at all, you writing the story? Did that have any impact on your
I mean,
the way you shaped it up and framed it? Because that was he showed a lot of integrity there.
He did, and people don't fully understand that, but that it's the role. Again, I've been yelled at and cursed at by every sheriff that served in Citrus County, over 50 years, and yet I consider some of those guys my friend. because the role that they play is to protect the agency and to protect the integrity of their group. The role I play, even if I'm their friend, is I'm going to still tell the story, and we're gonna tell it as accurately as we can. And BR was my friend at the time, even though I hadn't been there that long. BR actually was the cook, the chef at our wedding, at my wife and I's wedding down in Floral City many years ago. I liked him. I'm going to still tell the story. And that's what the press has to do. We don't make stuff up. We try to tell the truth, even when it hurts people that we really like. And in a small town, that's even more difficult. It's not so difficult in a place like Miami or New York City, because guess what? The TV broadcaster or the reporter covering stories in New York City, he doesn't know the mayor. They don't bump into each other on the street. They're not. That's not the way that it works. They may see each other at press conferences or at public events. In Inverness, in Citrus County, you see people all the time that you write stories about, and that includes BR. Quick story again, I'm shopping downtown Cash and Carry in Inverness. This is 1970s, and I'm bending over the meat counter, and a woman comes up to me I'd never met in my life, and she hits me in the head with a package of pork chops. I'm like, ma'am, what is your problem?
How many people could say that?
and she's like 80 years old at the time, but the woman was Tommy Schofield. And old timers will remember her. Tommy actually wrote a column for the Chronicle called Inverness and Invernessians. And long before that, her husband owned the Chronicle, like back in the 40s and the early 50s. So she felt real ownership. And what had happened is I forgot to run her column one week. And she tracked me down and took me out with a package of pork chops.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's small town editing in Florida.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
when you're talking about those disagreements, I think about our current editor, Jim over there, who I have a very high opinion of. But let me tell you something. He and I have some disagreements about some things. But
Uh-huh.
what's so cool is that I know that with that gentleman, I can disagree with him and he can disagree with me. And for me, that's actually just fun. I
Yeah.
enjoy those types of thoughtful conversations where you're defending your position and being open to hearing someone else's. And I enjoy that. And he's been that way since I've met him, since he's been here. What's what is, I could do this all day, man.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite stories that really sticks out to you when you look back?
You stick in the law enforcement area, and it is, to see what has come and gone in our community over the years. And I don't, we don't take it seriously enough that we live in a very safe place. And we owe a debt of gratitude to guys like Charlie Dean and Jeff Dawsey and the people who and Mike Prendergast, guys who have served in those positions over the years. I've had a lot of law enforcement interaction during those times, and it's the respect that you build up for what those guys go through and ladies go through is really critical to holding down the reputation that we have. Even though we're 165,000 people, it's a small town community, and that's what makes it so beautiful. But I will share one story. Okay, last story is there was another Inverness City Council member that didn't like me all that much at the time, but he actually had a little bit of a mental breakdown and was holding a hostage in a house. And the sheriff's department surrounded the house, and they were trying to figure out, how do we get this guy with a gun in the house, get him to come out and surrender. And I'm standing out there, I'm covering the event as a newspaper reporter, and the city councilman yells out of the house, "Send in Mulligan." And I did not go in that house. There's a place that you draw the line and just say, no, I've made that guy angry enough. I'm not going to face him with a gun. they eventually got him out, and life was fine. But a couple of years later, again, small town, I bumped into that city council member again in town, and we sort of laughed about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Send in Mulligan.
send in
Well,
Mulligan. That would be great.
I mean, you might have been a newsman, but you weren't that kind of newsman. I mean, that would have been like if that were Geraldo, he'd have went right on
Geraldo
in
would have
there.
went in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he'd have went right on in there. So we're glad you're smarter than Geraldo. You're still
yeah.
here to tell stories because of
Very
it.
good. Very good.
All right. Well, I always like to end by asking guests on here, as you look at Citrus County, a lot of changes going on. Our population's booming. There's a lot of growth. Of course, that's a hot topic right now. But as you look forward to the future of Citrus County, what is something that gets you excited, or what are you most hopeful about?
I'm most hopeful that as we grow up and so many new people move into Citrus County, that we don't forget what makes us special and what makes this a really cool place to live. Environmentally, it's gorgeous. The small town atmosphere is terrific. But guess what? That doesn't remain unless you fight for it, and unless we understand what makes us different, what makes us special. And I'll give a good example is Three Sisters Springs in Crystal River. How many years ago? 30 years ago, I helped convince the community and then raise money to buy Three Sisters and stop it from becoming a condominium project and let it become a national wildlife refuge. And now it's one of the most popular national wildlife refuges in the entire nation. I sit on the board now, the Friends Board of the Wildlife Refuge. So I'm somewhat involved in the things that are going on there. But what you see is as the community grows up, the usage of Three Sisters, it's out of whack. I was there the other day, Sunday of Labor Day weekend, and rode my bike into. There were 79 kayaks and paddleboards packed inside of Three Sisters Springs with about 150, 175 swimmers. Way too many people. It's just a tiny little swimming hole. You can't do that. But nobody wants to say we need to control things. We need to set up rules and regs that protect the assets and protect the resources that we have. Or they'll go away, and we'll end up like Newport Richey or some other place that you don't get a whole lot of tourists and people don't necessarily want to live. So what I think we need to be doing right now is analyzing what it is that makes our community special. Three Sisters is one of those places, but there's a lot of other things just like it, and then have the guts to stand up and show some leadership and protect what we have. And that means new rules, and no one likes rules. We like to do our own thing, but you can't, what you could do with 30,000 people, you can't do with 165,000 people. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as you're saying that, this is our home. If someone came to my home, my actual home, and tried to have any kind of way with it, well, they'd have a big problem on their hands.
Right. I hear
Right.
you. Yeah.
And this is this and I certainly have the guts to stand up for my home, right? And so, yeah, I just I don't know, it's just a different way of even looking at it for me. Yeah, this is our home. We need to make sure we protect it
Yep.
and
And
yeah.
just to digress, United Way is one of those things that's part of our home.
Mhm.
We need to protect United Way, and we need to make sure we as citizens and that we donate money to the cause, and we donate our time as volunteers to make sure that United Way has what it takes to to be that safety net that we have in our community. So it's full circle. It's understanding the things that make us special and not be passive about it. Don't let those things die on the vine. We got
Yeah.
to protect them.
Well, Gerry, I'm not someone who just frivolously throws out, compliments to folks. I don't like to do that because then I feel like people won't believe me when I compliment folks. But truly, and I think I've had the opportunity to tell you this before. I just admire the work that you've done in our community. There's a few. I think what I've told you is there's a few of you guys you're ahead of me by a few years,
Few
and
years.
and I look. And I look to you all. You're one. Our friend Gene, who's been on this broadcast before and who's on our board, is one of those gentlemen as well that I look to and say, you know, there's a good pattern that I can look at as I'm behind you all and be of benefit to this community. So thank you, man. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything that you've
words.
done for sure. You've made a heck of an impact. So Gerry Mulligan, everybody. I hope you all have enjoyed this. We actually, after Mo's interview a couple weeks ago, we turned this into a podcast, and so this can be found. I'll take this audio today of Gerry and I, and I'll upload that to all the podcast platforms. You can go to Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, download this, share that with a friend. If you just go onto any of those platforms and type in Voices United, you'll find this podcast and share it with folks. What could be better, Gerry, than tomorrow morning people driving to work, you know, at Duke Energy and listening to you and I talk the whole way? I mean, hopefully they won't fall asleep and careen off of 19.
Really?
But,
what could be better?
What could be better than that? You know, that really? Joe Rogan guy's got nothing on us. So, all right, so share that and share this broadcast today live on Facebook. We'd love it if we always think it's great if you like it, but when you share it, it's even better. Help out the algorithm, folks. Share it. So thank you all for watching. And we've got some really good guests coming up. So stay tuned. We'll be back here next week. Next week, Steve Howard, our county administrator. So make sure you tune in for that one. That'll be a good one. All right, Gerry.
Very good. Take care, George.
You too.
Thank you, Dan.